Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. You're joining me here today in the beautiful town of Ambleside in England's famous Lake District, Hythe, Pennsylvania. And very, very soon, hi King, we're going to be walking our way down towards Lake Windermere, which looks fabulous. I've walked up from there on the way to the car, so I know it's going to be fantastic. There's not too many people around. Sandra's been here before, so lots of you, I'm sure, will have wonderful memories. For those that don't, I'm going to start with what I hope is a pretty nice reveal. Worthy of Patrick, this one. So, to whet the appetite of Ambleside and what's on offer, how about this? How about that? For bucolic, for just classic England, beautiful stock gill we're going to talk about. But this is the quality of postcard we've got on offer for you this evening. So I'm just going to hold a moment because I want to just suck in. It's a nice leisurely tour here. It's plenty of time. So let's just enjoy this scene. Let's enjoy it together. So, welcome to Ambleside. We're located right in the heart of England's Lake District, and we're at the northern end of the mighty Lake Windermere. This is a real popular tourist centre, and it's surrounded by great fells. So as I take on the walk, you can't see so many around here, but as we walk around, what you're going to see, if I just point in this direction over here, hopefully you get first glimpse just there in the middle there of the fell. So you put the top there, top left to the left-hand corner. So we are surrounded by these kind of mighty fells on all sides, which really kind of give you a sense of sitting at the bottom, being kind of cradled with its arms around you, looking after you, this wonderful district. And of course, we're just on the edge of the lakes. So here you've got natural landscapes. Ambleside is also home to many distinctive buildings. So let's have a look. So having given you this first vision, we're going to go and have a look from the other side on that bridge in a few minutes. But let me bring you what has got to be, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most sensational buildings you can see anywhere on any Hago tour, and that is the wonderful Bridge House. Let me just try and get my gimbal's already playing up, so I'm just going to try my very, very... Oh, no! They just stand in the way. Go, 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 go. Thank you very much. Fantastic. So, look at that. So, it's built over the stream, and it is known as Stock Gill. It dates from the 17th century, the 1600s is when this was built. And it is just divine. There is no other word that... it kind of makes you... I don't know what emotions it brings out on me, but it is just so sweet. It is just absolutely delightful. It kind of warms the cockles. And most of the buildings around here are... It's not a private home, it belongs to the National Trust. It's gone through a variety of iterations, but... yeah, it's owned by the National Trust. So this stone, by the way, is a slate. It's all mined by... Yeah, perfect. If you like tiny house. Now, hands up. Who actually is tidy enough and organised enough, right, to live in a house that size? Give me a thumbs up if you think that you could be disciplined enough to live there. I'm going to give you a clue that I am not in the slightest. I'm not going to pretend, right? It'd be floor to ceiling. I could imagine there'd be little pathways running through if I lived there, because I've got too much clutter. LS walking, I think we're in the kind of same place. Jennifer's in the same place. Guys, 3 million in London, yeah. That'd be just for the parking space next to it, Alex, So this building's been a variety of purposes. So originally it was built as a folly. So it's important to recognise this wasn't built with a purpose in mind other than just to be damn cute, which is good enough reason, right? But it's also been... Is there a toilet? Yeah, Mark, you're looking at it right down there, mate. I think a hole in the floor... the direct flush method would have been used there. No, Sharon, no one lives there at the moment. So it's been a cobbler's, it's been a tea room, it's been a family compost toilet. Thank you for setting us straight there, Esther. And today's an information centre. So I'll bring you over to have a look up close. It's so nice there's no one sat here, because normally there's folks sat under here. And so consequently, I'll bring you to the sign there. And at the risk of breaking my neck, the things that I do for you guys, I'll take us up the stairs a little bit so you can see kind of up close and personal. Yeah, if I come to the top here, you can look down the stairs. We'll look across Stock Gill, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. I mean, what a place have we arrived at today. What a place this is. This is just one of my favourite little kind of spots, and just perfect for Hago. Everywhere you look, there's just something that's going to melt your heart. So this is one of the oldest landmarks. Carol, I love it. There's a Carol's been before, so bringing back the memories. And it's a kind of valued icon of the town. People just love this building, very proud of it. Obviously, it'll appear on an awful lot of the kind of postcards. Sorry if the vision's just gone there for a second. I'll just come this side. Thank you for following. Do give me a follow, so you can see what I'm up to next. If you like the cut of my jib, as you might say, the way that I go about doing whatever it is that we do on here. Here we are from the other side. So, it's just a kind of really iconic site of Ambleside. And for me, just part of this kind of fascinating history. But what runs below it, in many respects, Stock Gill, the waterway, is much more important. This isn't a folly. It's precisely the opposite. This is the engine room that drove the prosperity of this town. So, just on our side now, left side, the Flying Fleece. It's a lovely pub, great place to have a pint, something to eat. It's a former woolen mill, and it dates back to 1795. And the stones used, actually, it is lovely at Flying Fleece, are actually a good deal older, as is the case around here, where a lot of places, obviously, in England, you've got a reutilisation of the old stones. So the stones of construction are a good deal older, kind of taken down. But, of course, the key thing is a water wheel. So if I come over on this side, I can bring us down if you'd like to. I can't get into there, actually, but I'll better zoom in a little bit. So can you see the red water wheel on offer here? So everything here is about being governed by the water power. The movement, isn't it gorgeous? Yeah, I mean, obviously it looks beautiful, red painted, but I don't know how can you just see there if I go in a little bit further? You see how it works? Like little buckets of water, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, that basically the water rains down from above and it pushes the bucket down, which in turn rotates the wheel, and of course that is then turning a turbine. It's powering a rotary motor. So consequently, using natural resources to drive it. But of course, I don't know, there's that much zoom on this. What you want to do, of course, is to create more turbulence in the water to enable it to move. So we know there's been a mill here for about 600 years on this site. So going all the way back to the 15th century. And getting close to the building, which would suggest, doesn't it, in its location, that either it's been moved, which I just generally don't know, it's entirely possible, or this towpath has been extended outwards. And I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I'll try and find out. But I suspect it's been housed, although it's a very, very large thing to move. So I don't know. Let's come and have a look over. There's a nice viewing platform here of Stock Gill. So, just pause us for a second, just so we can just have a look over the waterway. So Stock Gill rises from a set of waterfalls that are about a mile away. I don't know if there's another. Look at that lovely view of Bridge House from there. So those that have been here may well have taken the walk. It's just under a mile, I believe, up to Stock Gill. But we haven't got time to do that today. But let me show you an image of the waterfalls so you'd know what it was you'd be looking at were we able to see it. And so you can see the vertical drop there is what's powering the turbulence of the water. So it runs right the way across into two rivers, actually. And Stock Gill flows for about 4 miles across from a place called Red Screes, right through Ambleside to the River Rothay. And we're going to follow it down. As we walk down towards the lakeside, we're going to go and have a look at the River Rothay. And that then flows into Lake Windermere. So in other words, the falls happen midway along. They drive the turbulence. And because even though you can see it's not very particularly deep at all, nonetheless there's sufficient turbulence to create the water power. So very, very kind of important element of it. So Stock Gill Falls is the waterfall that I showed you a picture of, what we're seeing, and Bridge House between us. Just gives you the last shot of Bridge House before we head up. So I'll just give you a little bit of zoom on there. Two kind of great iconic sites of Ambleside. And I know, like me, some of you are a bit long in the tooth, and your years of study are past you. But I just thought I'd show you over here, because I think it's got to be one of the cutest campuses that I've ever seen as a place to study. If you want to come and be an academic here, the other side of the Armit, so I'm about to get run over here, so I shall try and dodge this car. If not, it was nice knowing you. Right, Diane, it was your uni. Oh, fantastic. Well, Diane, what a place to come, because you've got the wonderful Armit Museum and Gallery. And then I made it across. You know, I'm not talking to you from the other side, just in case you were wondering. There is another life. He's talking to us now. So I made it across, and I might even make it into the tour. Who knows, stranger things have happened. Again, just look at this wonderful style. This is what I love. Just going to bring you close up here, just so you can just take in this architectural style that is so clever. Carlisle campus. So clever utilisation of these materials, kind of fit it all together. It looks kind of so organic, but of course it's been done beautifully by hand. So this is the campus here at Ambleside. It's part of the University of Cumbria, and it's called Low Nook. Now, what a place, like a hotel, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to live there? So Diane lives 40 miles away. Cumbria, by the way, for those who don't know, is a huge county. I know it pretty well. Historically, it was Kingdom of Cumberland and Westmoreland that now come together to become Cumbria. It's a huge county of which the lakes are one relatively, not small part of it, but there's an awful lot of Cumbria that's not in the lakes. They're not coterminous. The terms Cumbria and Lake District don't mean the same thing. It's like Holland and the Netherlands for those. Isn't it a wonderful skill? And of course, we've got it here as well. This isn't dry stone walling, because obviously in the soldier courses, the uprights here, there is some cement holding them in place. But nonetheless, so let's kind of take a walk up. But what a lovely place to study that would be. So let me just, I'm just having a drink, because husband was from Cumbria, but Carlisle. Yeah, so Carlisle is in Cumberland. I think I've got that right, right where I was. So the Lower Eden Valley and the bottom side, the bit that butches the Yorkshire Dales, I believe is Westmoreland. If I've got that horribly wrong, somebody ordered me to be flogged at the end of the tour, but I think that's the right way around. And then the top corner, the bit that Carlisle and the sort of Scots border side, is the bit that... just get a drink there. Is the bit... Isn't it gorgeous? I think, strictly speaking, it's a town, Dolores, but it's not a very big town. Jill was here for 3 nights in June. How fantastic. We had a lovely time while you were here. Kenrith, yeah, Appleby, Westmoreland. Yes, Appleby's the lower side. So the bit that kind of joins on an A66, the bit that kind of comes in, you kind of got Durham on one side, Yorkshire Dales below you, Appleby where the horse fair is and so forth. That's Westmoreland, and Cumberland is Carlisle and so forth. So Smithy Brow, I mean, what a wonderful name. How can you... it's a time of day, Catherine. I've kind of learnt... any guides on here? Good tip for those that want to go to popular places. Come midweek and come about 7 in the evening, because by that stage the day trips have gone home, and those that are staying here will be out. They'll either gone home waiting to come back out again, or they'll be tucking in, so the roads are quiet. So it's a really good time to tour. So actually, no, it's a really rubbish time. Don't compete with me. So this is Smithy Brow that we're going up to, and thank you, Violet. It's lovely. So some of the oldest parts of the town up here, and actually, historically, Ambleside was much, much higher than it is today. It's gradually worked its way down to the... definitely not quite beautiful. Yeah. So it's fairly quiet tonight, I think, is the point it's being. So gradually, over time, it's worked its way down the hillside. And it's inspired many artists as well, by the way, is this place. You know, if you want to sort of look into it, you know, everybody from kind of Turner to John Ruskin, you know, they've all painted here. Hi, Hilary from Jerusalem, lovely to see you. And Helen has joined us from Quebec. Alice and Kay, thank you for that. And Abdul's joined us as well. So we're here in the lovely town of Ambleside. We're walking up Smithy Brow. And we think the name, by the way, comes from the Old English meaning tree trunk. That's Norse Gill, by that's that kind of tree trunk. And Stockgill, Norse Gill, that's up at the top towards where the old village was located. So this is... as I say, one of the oldest pubs in the village. SMIES. Forgotten the difference between town and village population. I don't think there is a particular delineation, Dolores. We've got some villages over here in this country that are maybe 5,000, 10,000. Not quite 10,000, certainly 5,000. You know, and some towns that are well under, 6 or 7. So this is definitely a town. I think it's to do with sort of politics as well. Councils and representation and so forth. I think these have a factor. But look at the hanging baskets. I think they've done a beautiful job. Here it is, absolutely gorgeous. Such an effort has been made here. And, of course, it's just a little bit off the main drag. But Ambleside's home to about 2,600 people. But of course, you've got this vast influx of people every day coming, because down at the water end, where we're going to go towards the final part of the tour, you've got the steamer boats coming in on a daily basis. That significantly enhances the population. But what you tend to find is an awful lot of people just stay down by the waterside, which I think is a lovely publicity line. Is this one, the Golden Rule. We're going to see the unicorn in a minute as well. Beautiful flower boxes, aren't they? Give me one last shot of this 18th century pub. So consequently, you've got a lot of people coming in from nearby Bowness, but they don't get beyond the shoreline. They just kind of sit, and you'll understand why when we get down there. There's actually a lot of cafes, ice cream places. You're just going to sit and bide your time and look at the boats. And it's a beautiful spot, which you're going to see. It's not a criticism, but it's a shame, because we're actually about a mile away here from the water's edge. So I've kind of designed this tour to allow us to see both. So which is why it's a longer tour. And Jill's been in the Golden Rule, so Jill knows. Those that have been know, but an awful lot of people come here and they don't see. It's a shame, because I think there's so much of the old town, this kind of network of hilly streets. We did in Windermere during our trip in the area, walked down to Ambleside. Well, Sandra, did you come up to the town, or did you sort of stay down by the water's edge? Because that's what a lot of folk do. So the ancient settlement of Ambleside, we know, was right up at the top. So again, if you can just kind of get a sense, if I just come up here a little bit into Fairview, were we to kind of walk up, the Church of St Anne's right up at the top, Stockgill, you see this in the background here between the two houses. This is the location of Old Ambleside. And of course, like a lot of places, of course, they were built in places of good visibility, where the hill forts and so forth. So it's not necessarily a surprise that, of course, that historically they took the higher ground, which is easy to defend. It's easy to kind of spot potential transgressors, invaders, and there's usually good clean water sources up at the top. But that over time, it's worked its way down the hill, and now in effect, obviously, is hugging the shoreline. So mostly older parts of the building. So as I say, on Smithy Row, the Golden Rule, the pub we just saw, dates from about 1723. And it used to be part of Ambleside Hall. So all this area around here was once the location of Ambleside Hall, which has largely been now taken down. Certain bits of it still exist, like this little outbuilding here, was once the Smithy's barn, so the blacksmiths. The sky's looking quite dramatic. It's quite heavy. It's not been sort of bright sunshine all day. It's kind of been, I mean, we are staying about 8 or 9 miles away from here. But it's kind of been this sort of blue-grey sky all day. And hi, those that are just joining us. Here in Ambleside, we're just walking along, admiring the charm of the old town before we wind our way down to the shoreline of the iconic Lake Windermere. And, of course, everything in this part of the world, for those that have been, will know and recognise this dark slate which defines the buildings. But up this end of the town, as I say, where not a lot of people come down here, are just, to me, some of those charming parts. So some of the buildings in this part, dating back to the 16th century, that's when the hall was. It was the wealthy Braithwaite family. They've long since gone, sold up. There's just a few sort of little bits and pieces left. This cottage up here, the early part of the 18th century. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And the unicorn directly opposite is said to be the oldest drinking establishment in the town. Isn't it, Sandy? It is absolutely gorgeous, this part of the town. And just a little bit, say, just off the main drag. So the first settlement was above here and then gradually kind of worked its way down here. So by the 18th century, and the reason that they initially started to work their way down was, of course, accessing water power. It was the mills and the industrial. So we look at this now and we think of this as a town that is orientated around tourism, but in actual fact, its roots lie in industry, in water powers, in utilising the natural assets that it had to drive the water power, the mills, so productivity. It was able to compete. But of course, let's not take away from the fact it is very beautiful too. So a very nice place to live from very, very early on. This, by the way, is the pathway for those that have got good stout constitutions and good legs. If you want to go and walk up to find the old settlement, you go up here, up Peggy Hill. I don't know if those that have visited have been at Peggy Hill, but the top of there is where you'll find St Anne's Church, which is where the cluster of the original kind of site was. And what we know is that the settlement starts here, in these fields, looking at this dawn, and this is the easy bit. It never gets this good again. You know, you look back on this bit, you kind of wistfully, and think, oh, that's so easy, that bit, by comparison. A bit like today going up that crag side. Did the video for those that watched it on my channel. This is, you know, kind of nice and gentle, but gradually you kind of work your way. And what we know is that the settlement Ambleside here dates back to Roman times. There's a fort that we're going to look at down by the side of Windermere, dating back to 1st century. And after the Romans went, the old village of Ambleside was built up here. Quite a few smokes of it. Well, they'll be huffing and puffing. And it was quietly prosperous for over 1,700 years since. Because Ambleside has kind of worked its way down to grow to the waterside. Thank you, Corinne. But it's really based upon this water power. It's harnessing of the natural resources. So back we are here on Stock Gill. Isn't this quite something? Yes, Sandy's legs, lungs, and everything hurts just looking at it, I can assure you. But look at that. I mean, isn't that? For those that are in North America, I know that when you think of England, I know you love the old buildings of York, but also, isn't this what you think of? These pastoral scenes, the greens, absolutely the dream big that you couldn't have put it better. That's a really poetic way. Thank you, Alison. Not much lawn mowing. That's what Linda pictures all the time. This is, and of course so many of you have got roots, if not here in England, then in Northern Europe, in Western Europe. So your ancestors would have known in centuries gone by, would have come down here to wash their clothes, to gain fresh water, perhaps working and living in mills, driven by this water power. So it's our shared industrial heritage. Before steam, there's water. And so the places that were built with this kind of topography, where the water flowed down and drive it, had a huge advantage. And so consequently, Ambleside was really able to take advantage. So where we started, where we started the tour, if you remember that bridge there, we're on the other side now. We've moved all the way through. It is, Leslie, I completely agree. It's beautiful. So that was the bridge that I was sat on. We looked up in this direction, so you've got a sort of 180 on this one. It's beautiful in summer, but harsh in winter. Well, isn't that the same for a lot of places that are beautiful? And of course, nowadays, very easy to reach. Historically, much, much more cut off. So let me just show you. So this is the oldest streets down here. To the Unicorn, I was pointing to just a minute. We'll come back to this waterside in a moment. This, as we say, is the oldest licensed establishment. But many of the pubs and homes are built here by Stock Gill. So Ambleside, as we said, rises up historically over there and flows its way. Hi, MB, didn't know you're on. Flows all the way down towards the water's edge, which is where we're heading. So let's have a look. So yes, St Anne's Chapel. For those that have been up there, you'll find that there is an abandoned chapel. But let's just give you a nice sort of Stock High Bridge. That's what this is called. So for centuries, the water of Stock Gill made this the busy industrial centre of Ambleside. By the 10th century, Irish Norse settlers had established small farmsteads on the rocky knoll beyond the old lakeside Roman settlement, which we're going to see in a little bit. But in the 14th century, their descendants used the Beck's water power to work simple mills, grinding grain, later washing, fulling, and weaving wool. Fulling is removing the grease, by the way. They use urine to get the grease off sheep's wool. The first mill was established in 1335, the last in 1793. Much later, local coppice woods, these mills crushed bark to make tannin for the curing of skins and produced millions of bobbins for the Lancashire cotton industry. The ancient Hallicor Ford over Stock Gill was probably nearby. North Road was a coaching road through Ambleside before the Turnpike Road was built in 1833. So that just kind of gives us, yes, of course we can show, we're going to have a look at all these beautiful buildings on here, but let's just first take you again to admire what was once an industrial building, but is now, I think, breathtakingly beautiful. You know, so we think of this as being, you know, a tourist town, but really it's all about industrial heritage. And the waters of the Stock Gill here is what powers the mills. So if we look across the stream here, we can see another one of the water wheels. So looking at it, I think we can answer your question now. Was it Polly, I think, asked about it? I think what we've probably got is some kind of Archimedes screw, which is a screw that would pull the water uphill to drop it down onto the top. I think that's what's happening there. So Candice, in the mills, historically, water, paper, textiles, but an awful lot of this was done of tannins, of barks. What they basically use is tannins help to create leather. Take animal skins, apply tannins from barks in the treating of it, and it creates what we think of now as leather. I'll just give you another shot down here. I mean, just how beautiful is that? Hi, Alison. So, of course, this became, if you like, the industrial centre, which is kind of hard to kind of envisage. What happens really next, though, is just something delightful. If you've been on the tour before, you may remember. So I'm just going to take us past Bumble's Rest Cafe and again through these historic houses, this tiny little maze. Can anybody remember what happens? Nice little surprise. Hi, Anne. I know, a water in your house. How nice would that be? How nice would that be? Little crest up there, you can see. Insurance plaque. In the old days, you displayed a plaque to show you insured. If you weren't insured, the fire brigade wouldn't come and put your house fire out. So, you ever see old plaques on English houses? That's what that's all about. But here we are. Stock Gill is about to go under somebody's house. So we are too. So we're here in Bridge Street, amongst the cottages, and this is where Stock Gill runs underneath the cottage and leads out into another old main street. So let's follow that down. Now, isn't this lovely? Isn't this what Hago is all about? Just the charm and delight of discovering new things. Wonderful individual surprises. Places that are unique, wherever they are in the world, that are just different. They're their own place. They're not shaped by other places. They've got distinct identity and a charm all of their own. Hobbit path. Well, Finny, I'm just a shade of a 6 foot, and I have to stoop down there. So so Diane used to come here to shop. So I was saying earlier about the bark mills. So we've got the old bark mill here. So I say bark, tannins extracted from barks were used in the curing of animal skins to create leather, so very much in demand. And also they made a lot of bobbins here. You know what bobbins are? Like for cotton reels used in textile mills, the wooden things that the thread is wound round, for your looms and for your textile machinery. So this is Bridge Street, formerly Rattle Gill. So always see the signs around us. Yeah, Joy, the fire insurance, what you tend to see on a lot of old buildings is a plaque. And I'm looking around certainly on these buildings. And basically, in the old days, when you paid for insurance, you basically paid for access to the fire service. And the way you demonstrated that you were up to date with your insurance is you had a plaque that went on your wall. And so if your house was on fire and the fire brigade were called, if they couldn't see the plaque on your wall, they passed by and let your house burn down. No qualms whatsoever about that. So let's have a walk into the, the more sort of commercialised side of things, because obviously the industrial past, for the most part now, is part of Ambleside's history. Its current is very much about leisure, and it's kind of top-end leisure offer. Can I once more? Can you speak the camera around once more, Samita? I'll do my best. Did you mean for down? Here's another car just in the way. I'll just let this car come out, and then we'll do that. If that indeed was what you are after. Just looking down into Bridge Street. Yes, your house would be at risk. Yes, indeed. So these days, it's very much about outdoor adventure, but also leisure and comfort. So you just as like to see shops advertising, kind of outdoor walking, but also health spas, and kind of the luxury end of it. But basically, the whole of Ambleside now is largely orientated towards tourism, and it's definitely on the more, I wouldn't say affluent end. It's not completely unaffordable, but it's definitely at the more sort of comfortable end, shall we say. And so the shops, the brands, you're not looking at a bunch of pound shops, you're not looking at a bunch of discount stores, you're looking at shops that are anticipating that people coming here got money to spend. And we've kind of got a mixture of beautiful Victorian shop fronts. No, there may well be a Greggs, Alex, I don't know. There may well be one tucked away, there probably is. But for the most part, it's anticipating that the people that are here have got money to spend. So it's lots of independent shops, ready to, Alice, and they just reach into your pocket and they can shake it on the way out in case you've got any change. See if you're going to rattling. It's that kind of place. Yeah. They're anticipating that there is... Oh, there we are, Alex. You were right on the money there, mate. They're actually... I'm not going to cross the road because it's a busy road. But they're nestling just next to Fat Face, rather appropriately, is a Greggs. Fat Face and fat other things as well, if you eat too many Greggs. But nonetheless, so you can get... Fat Face is a clothes brand. It's not an insult. It's a clothes brand. Do apologise. I am not denigrating. I'm not being mean about somebody. An individual, though, with a rotund... no, it wasn't about that. I will cross over, actually, because it's just such a lovely bit, this. That's the bus station. So what a lovely little just parade of shops here. So I'll just try and drop down a little bit and just try and give you a bit of a sense. It's the old bus station. Is that what it was? The old bus station. Oh, I see. So it's got lovely parades. It's gently working its way up the hillside. The bobbins that were made here were exported to textile mills across the country, and so lots and lots of money was made. And so when you start to look at the buildings, what is with the painted road lines not being straight? If you mean these, that means no parking, no waiting, I believe. It's like outside schools. So don't even wait. Don't even think about stopping there, because you create a hazard. The road narrows, you've got a lot of big vehicles coming in and out, delivery vans and so forth. So consequently, it wouldn't be safe. So it became very affluent, and so consequently, both in terms of the leisure offer, but also, also in terms of then, if you like, holiday places, for the affluent mill owners to live, you start to see buildings like the Salutation here developing from the mid part of the 19th century onwards to accommodate the wealthy and their desires to have these beautiful lakeside accommodations. But a little bit older, just over here, we've got the remnants of the Market Cross. And a Market Cross, by the way, is a sign that you've got the right to host a market. It's usually given by a king, by a prince, a bishop, and it gives you the right to hold a weekly, daily, a monthly market. So we've just got the kind of remains here. Thank you, Diane. Yes, Salutation was teetotal accommodation, hence its name, because, of course, this is also, this part of the world, for those that know about such things, Quakerism was founded in Cumbria. So Quakerism is a sort of form of Protestant religion. It's very kind of observant. They live quite kind of austere lives to the Quakers. Very kind of observant. Live for kind of lives of low, they don't have flashiness. They don't wear coloured clothing. They eat with very, very plain cookware. So people who would be very, very wealthy but live very, very modest lives. And so being teetotal, so like the Methodists, the Quakers were walking down towards the nearest lake, which is the most famous of them all. Anyone escaped the country. So what you've got is the wealth that's being created here starts to create this new town that's working its way down now. We're going to start walking down now towards the lakeside. It's a lovely fish spot. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Awesome show. Oh, escaped. Yeah, I see. I thought you were on my tour then for a minute. I was like, oh, thank you very much. And then I realised you weren't. Isn't that wonderful? Lovely bit of natural sculpture. And I'm just trying to lift it above there. Lovely juxtaposition with the greenery behind this. Yeah, the water view, that's on its way. And so, of course, you've got Clarins. So it's as much about luxury now as it is about, exercise, but if I just sort of turn us around, you're starting to get a real sense, thank you, Rachel, of the fells in the background. Almost everywhere you look, every time there's a gap between the buildings, just spin us around a little bit, and you get this sense of a backdrop that's towering above the town, that was sat kind of right at the bottom. So, as I say, this is the kind of the Market Cross. The market, this, by the way, cross dates from 16 1851. I should have mentioned that. As a fact I've remembered. Love the quote on the Spa building. What's the quote on the Spa building? Where we're looking? Direct me to where the quote was. I can't see it. Anyway, let's just go back over there. So you kind of get just a sense that on some days, the sky sits so heavily, it's almost like the world's cross with you. You know? It's a slate stone. Esther is the stone used. You know, and it can be so low, but at other times, yes, it's slate, but at other times, you get some glorious, glorious blue skies. You somewhere in between. And of course, being in England's northwest, you've got a great deal of rain precipitation up here because of the landscape. So, you know, you've got a lot of time the weather here is great. Yeah, I can't see where the writing is. I can only apologise. If somebody knows what it is. Got it. I've seen it now. Hang on. Right, it says, close to home, far from expected, which is very nice, isn't it? Thank you, Nola. Sorry I didn't spot that. Is that Nola the guide? Nola a guide, or is that another Nola we have on? Anyway, either way, Nola, thank you for pointing that out and adding to our enjoyment of Ambleside. The whole thing, of course, is just a delight. So yeah, with its market that was obviously around this area, coming into the market area now, coming to the market hall up, again, it's just a further boost. So basically what you get is you know, Ambleside emerging as a market centre. So for the people involved in livestock farming, which of course there's a great deal around here, awful lot of sheep farming, it has this other ancillary function, both in terms of the textiles and production, so the selling of fleeces, but also the selling of meats and animals as well. So you've really got, you know, a whole bunch, thank you, Deborah, of Airbnb to, yes, LS walking touring, a lot. I mean, let's be honest, yes, a lot. You know, this is, most places where we're staying, I've got a lot box, to be honest. And that's sort of part of the problem, part of the challenge for these communities, of course, is staying viable in terms of things like schools and sort of the social provision, particularly outside holiday season, because this is quite a cold place to come in winter. So Mountain Goat, great tours, they do. Leave from York every day in other locations. Esther, it costs lots to live here. Yes, short answer. Not necessarily cost of living to live here would be particularly expensive, but it would certainly be expensive to buy a property here and rent a property here. So, but this is, I'd say, the major centre of the South Lakes of where we are here. And as I say, historically, you've got a whole range of mills. You've got paper, bark, corn and cloth. So all sorts of things being traded. We've got the market hall there. I'm just going to give us a vertical shot of the market hall, just so you can sort of take in. So close your eyes if you get the motion. There we go, the market hall in front of us. So the arrival of the kind of traders market really helped drive the trading resources and the wealth being kind of created here. So as we kind of walk down now, we're going to start walking down towards the waterside, and what you're going to see is the buildings that is I'm on Hago.com. Hago.com. So these are the buildings, if you like, that have been generated from this wealth. These are the properties that people have made for themselves, from the money that was made from the mills. So, you know, it's just a lovely sort of place to be. So we're asking about Hago there. So this, what you're sort of witnessing here with this flourishing, some of the oldest buildings in Lakeland that have been built in response to the emergence of leisure and tourism. This is kind of the beginnings of it all. The shores, let me just bring it down here just to show you. I mean, just how cute is this? You know, you're going to die, you know. You know, look at that. Who wouldn't want to drop into Sheila's cottage for coffee and cakes, lunch and dinner? You know, they take beautiful buildings and then they make the effort, they just dress them up. And so I think we can all agree, I won't film on the inside, but it just looks delightful, doesn't it? It just you want to be there, don't you? Let's be honest. Thank you, Doreen. You know, you just look at this and think, this is where I want to be. You know, I'm sure many of you that have never visited here before will be looking at this and going, this is a destination. You know, just a place to potter around. Of course, you've got the water's edge, not even reached yet. But what a destination. No interest to the US, John? Need this cuteness? Absolutely. It's like a sugar, saccharine rush, isn't it? You won't go to bed for 3 hours after this, will you? Be all running around all excited because you overdose on English cuteness. But I say, this sort of building boom down here, this is all about the wealth created in kind of Ambleside for the upper classes. You know, let's be honest. So these days, Lake District is one of the most popular destinations in the UK, and Ambleside is a kind of prime spot. And what really kind of drove the explosion of this was from the 1950s onwards, when people started to build access cars. Because before the kind of arrival and the normalisation of car ownership, accessing this part of the world, particularly outside the kind of summer months, was quite a stretch, as you might say. So the car ownership, sort of from the 1960s onwards, made it much more equitable, as you might say, in terms of regular people. And it's the same everywhere, like at the seaside or wherever. You know, it became within the reach of lots and lots of people living in the northwest. So for all of us living in the industrial communities of, you know, of Greater Manchester, the mills and textile towns didn't no longer just have to go to Blackpool; they could come up here. So you know, it kind of really opened up. Retiring to a village like this, thank you, Penny. So consequently, an awful lot of this, you know, is very much based, of course, now around visitors. So obviously, you can come and get artisan products, beers, gins, foods, of course, textile products. You know, you name it, is kind of widely available. But as we just pass out the main part in the town, it's time for us to start walking down to the lake, but also to talk about the guy whose name is on the top. So we're just a bit busy this bit. I'll just get us through here, and then we will start having a word about a rather famous chap who left his stamp on this place. His name's on the tin, so you probably guessed who we're talking about. Kendal Mint Cake, yeah, well, of course, it was an energy giver, wasn't it, Kendal Mint Cake? That was the idea of it, was to, for walkers up on the fells, feeling a bit weary, feeling a bit tired, you could get that absolute sugar injection. It's kind of super sugar, isn't it, to keep you going. It's the priest hole. But we're going to talk now about the old stamp house. Because the old stamp house, which is just here, was the office of a certain William Wordsworth in 1831. So the famous poet William Wordsworth became postmaster here and distributor of stamps for Westmoreland. So he was selling stamps. And his salary was £400 a year, which actually was a very, very fine salary in those days. And a lot of the artistic and literary pals thought he'd really sold out. They couldn't believe that he kind of denigrated himself. You can stay here if you want to. Come and stay at Wordsworth Stamp House. But he worked here on a daily basis, look, between 1813 and 1843. So this wasn't like a trivial location. This was the main working centre of William Wordsworth's life. This is what he did. He lived here as the postmaster, which is quite incredible, isn't it? We think of him as being this kind of romantic, and of course he was a romantic poet. We'll talk about his poetry in a little bit. But the day job was working here. So shall I just turn this around so we can get in best we can? If I go down this way, and I'll try and turn it, I'll get it all into a postcard for you. So I'm going to spin the camera again. So between 1813, if you'd have been here, and 1843, on a daily basis, you'd have seen William Wordsworth ascend those steps on his way to work. Gone inside, if you had dealings with the postmaster, it would have been William Wordsworth. It just seems odd, doesn't it? Somebody as famous as William Wordsworth could be the chap selling you your stamps for your postcards and for your letters, writing back about your adventures of where you'd been. Amazing. So, as I say, when he lived here, or he worked here, he'd moved to Rydal Mount in the same year, which is, I'll try and get us there at some tour when I come up here again. And he lived there with his family and his sister. And he stayed there until his death in 1850. So again, we're just getting this landscape just trying to appear now, the fells coming in. And I think that one's Ambleside Crag. I may well be wrong. I don't know the names of all of them. But let's just talk about him. So Wordsworth was one of England's most beloved poets. So what we're going to do now is just, I'm going to keep talking for a little bit, try and remember as much as I can of from my English A-level about Wordsworth. But basically, I've got about half a mile to cover now as we walk our way down towards... We're sort of finishing with the town, and we're going to walk our way down to the waterside. So I'll get us as many nice shots in as the buildings, but we're going to try maybe Lothrig, that one, on that side. Anyway, so these cottages, by the way, of course, are contemporary to Wordsworth time. So one way street, is it? Yep. And some very, very cute little cottages walking down here. So Wordsworth, of course, is one of England's most beloved poets. He's the kind of pioneer of Romanticism, isn't he? And he was made Poet Laureate in 1843. So the year he finished working at the post office was because he was given a new job as the Poet Laureate. He was born in Cockermouth in Cumbria on the 7th of April in the year 1770 to John Wordsworth, was his father, and his father was a legal agent. His wife was called Anne, his mother was called Anne, and he's the second of 5 children. But he remains very, very close to his sister Dorothy. And for those that have spent any time looking or studying Wordsworth's life, Dorothy is a remarkable woman. That in any other era, or any more modern era, Dorothy would have emerged as a literary force every bit, on the same level as William Wordsworth. But being the time that it was, women weren't really able to publish. They weren't expected to have professions. And so she is something of a muse rather than having a whole sort of creative output. But she would have been a poet as well. So he grows up in an impressive mansion in the Lake District. But his childhood's not happy. The relationship with his father is very cold. And that's something that really bothers him. He wishes that he was able to develop a relationship with his father. And he remains in this sort of predicament until the day he dies. But they've got this strange relationship, but the key thing that John Wordsworth does do is he leaves a big impression on young William, and particularly instills in the importance of literature. So because of Wordsworth's wealth, he grows up in affluent surroundings. There's library, there's books. So the young William Wordsworth is able to kind of learn and be inspired by some of the great literary publications. And this kind of exposure at an early age to literature seems to be the kind of critical shaping force, along with this childhood growing up, of course, in the Lake District. He spent a great deal of time in Penrith at his grandparents, so he covered quite a lot of the county. It wasn't just one part that he was kind of exposed to. And, of course, the countryside, the landscape, is a kind of important element that he covers in his poetry. And for long periods of time, Wordsworth, quite a solitary figure, would spend his time, a bit like Emily Bronte, out walking in the countryside, finding kind of escapism, perhaps getting some sort of downtime, from the stresses of life and family relationships by going out and walking. So everything for him, obviously, is about the relationship being part of this kind of nature. Now, his mother dies when he's just 7. And again, like so many people who lose a parent at a young age, they end up finding kind of creative outlets, isn't it? That seems to be a pattern we've seen over and over talking on these tours, haven't we? About the John Lennons and so forth. People that lose parents early on, they often escape into the Brontes, of course, lost their mother very, very young. They escape into his world of kind of creativity and literature. So his mother is taken in by his mother's family, but he's separated at this point from his sister Dorothy, which he developed this really kind of close bond with him. So this is a real kind of hammer blow to young William. And she's sent away to live in Halifax with their mother's cousin. So he stays in Penrith, where his kind of initial education is based on religion, tradition. But then in the second part, he's sent to Hawkshead Grammar School, which is probably about 7 or 8 miles away from here, which has got a much stronger emphasis on scholarly pursuits and was a kind of stepping stone, anticipating that he's going to go on to study higher education at university. And William's time at Hawkshead, let's just bring you out to see the church here, beautiful, is really kind of productive. And he kind of studies maths and literature and Latin. And Latin becomes very, very important to Wordsworth. He becomes a keen Latin scholar. And with the encouragement of his kind of schoolmasters, he's supported to write poetry, which is great. So he's put into an environment. He's had this, as I say, boost from his father's wealth giving him access to a library. His sister's very interested too. He's then got this problematic relationship with his father. He wants to escape. He's stimulated by the landscape. And finally, he finds an environment which sort of supports him, encourages him to write poetry, to learn Latin, think about language, and so forth. So, his grandparents lived in Penrith, Diane, didn't they? So it was an important part of his kind of childhood location. So what's important to recognise is that this county, or this area, the Lake District, if you like, as well as Cumbria, there are quite a few touch points. So there isn't just one, obviously, of course, Rydal Mount, Grasmere. There's various places that are famously linked to Wordsworth. But equally, Ambleside, Cockermouth, Penrith, Hawkshead because of his school. There's lots and lots of locations that had a formative impact upon him. So it was clear, they recognised that he was a very, very talented young man. Thank you, Casey. And he lodged with a family, local. And whilst he was staying in this community, he really kind of took on board the ideas of the Quakers. Hello, Angela from Tassie. Good ear to have you on. So the Quakers, the thinking process of the Quakers, their austerity, their simple faith and practice also begins to rub off on him. He thinks and takes on board, he reads Quaker literature, he's thinking about religion, kind of society and nature. So he's starting to think not just about the natural world, but our role within it, if that kind of makes sense. And of course, think about the time that he's living in. By now, we're talking about the latter part of the 18th century. He's beginning to understand, reading about, of course, the French Revolution. People like Marquis de Montesquieu, and these political thinkers that are thinking about kind of society and liberty. So check it, national. Okay, I'm going to leave that one down. I think that's a conversation you guys have, which is absolutely fine. Side chats are fine with me. I'm just walking us down to Lakeside. So I think all these elements, you've got kind of nature and romanticism on the kind of one side that is shaping his thinking. On the other side, you've got kind of European politics, radicalism, all coming through into this young man who is both hyper-literate, very educated, but also very thoughtful. He can draw deep. He's learnt to think. He's learnt to kind of study and apply that study to language and to really get down in words. And of course, poetry, is the art of saying huge amounts in relatively few words. So, I think he's uniquely well suited in terms of the skill set he's had, the environment that supported him. He's had people that, of course, have been remarkably effective in driving kind of what he does next. So his first kind of major foray, after Hawkshead, he goes to St John's College. I think he's there in 1787, so just before the French Revolution, just as Europe is about to be transformed with revolutionary fervour. And he wasn't particularly good, it said at Oxford. Cambridge rather. He decided to go for a tour of the Alps with his friend. And he leaves in 1790. And they go off on a walking tour of Europe. And this really influences his literary work as well as his kind of political and social conscience. Because in France, Wordsworth really kind of gets an idea of the social issues affecting everyday men and women and the kind of context of the French Revolution. So he sees this stuff firsthand. This idea of liberal democracy, concept of kind of equality and liberty, they really influence his political thinking. And he also has a daughter called Caroline in France, but he leaves her before she's born. He does go back to France in 1802 with his sister to meet her. But it's in France that some of Wordsworth's earliest poetry is written, and it's published in 1793. And by this stage, she's got the travel bug. This is what Wordsworth is, this is what he does. And so back in Britain, he comes and marries his childhood sweetheart, Mary Hutchinson, and they go on to have 5 children together, but only 3 reach adulthood. And his family eventually settles down in Grasmere, which is a very short distance from here in the Lake District, about 5 miles away. And it really takes off his career in 1795 when he and Coleridge, of course, published the lyrical ballads, and they come out in 1798, and that's really seen as the cultural beginnings of Romanticism. It's together the high point and that's where it all kind of starts off. And they kind of use language that at the time might seem now to us seem quite fancy, but at the time was seen as incredibly plain and accessible to working people. He was the everyman idea. So let's just start to have a look now at the river. Round red signs. Yep. So I'm just going to make sure I'm tucked in because this car, make sure it can see me. So what's on the bridge over the river? So the round red signs, just generally warning instruction signs. We're here now over the river. So Stock Gill has flown its way down. So yeah, I find if you haven't looked at Wordsworth, do look him up. And that sounds kind of sort of trite and obvious. But I think he's surprisingly accessible. He's not a difficult poet at all. And he does really kind of tackle some slanted rocks on the top of rocks for looks or serve purpose. Well, partly to hold them in place, and partly because they look good. No, I think the answer. So if you haven't already looked at things like lyrical ballads or The Tables Turned, I mean, of course, you've got very, very famous ones, Daffodils, One of Lonely's a Cloud, and so forth. There are immediately you're going to find sets of words that you'll recognise. Okay, I didn't even know that I knew that, but now I know it's Wordsworth. But he is, he's not somebody that delights in obscurity. He delights in making connection with the everyman. And it's about nature, human knowledge. It all just comes together. So let's just come down here and I'll just give you another little bridge about that. So yes, nature is a really important. There's a little bridge here. I'll just take us down here and then we'll walk down. Because we're not far away from Windermere now. We've Tinton Abbey. Yeah, lovely one. Yep. Says KCM. So if you haven't, just Google. I mean, that's the great thing. You don't have to buy books these days. You just go on Google. And the great thing about a lot of sites now is they'll explain it as well. So if you want to kind of, read a poem and then read what a commentator said about it, that's often a great way of getting into it, kind of unpicking language and themes and perhaps putting some of the historical understanding that you might not have been aware of what was going on at the time it was being. So the internet, I think, is fabulous for that sort of thing, of really kind of giving us access to knowledge. And that at one time you needed access to books, and of course books are wonderful, but now, of course, there's wonderful websites and passionate people will tell you all about that. Isn't this beautiful, this glade? So we're right over the River Raleigh, and you can see again, hopefully, very, very shallow. So let's have a walk down. So I'm just getting a little bit out of breath. I do apologise. We're going to have a gulp of water as we walk down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk down the side of the river, and it's going to bring us out the shoreline. So hands up, just give me a thumbs up if you've ever been physically to Lake Windermere, because I know it is one of the most famous sites. So Susan has been, DT has been, Joyce, Trist, Mark, Polly, Karen. So, right, good. Alex has been, of course. Great guide, Alex. So quite a few of you have kind of physically been. And I'm sure you remember it with fondness. It is, after all, just one of those places that, it's there are a number of famous lakes in the world, aren't there? And it's quite clear to me that Lake Windermere is one of them. For whatever reason, whether it's the landscape, it's partly the name, isn't it? Don't you think? Just the name Windermere is just so beautiful that MB saw a show on Windermere about school children. Jeff had his honeymoon. Oh, wonderful. Where were you? Down at Windermere Town, Bonus? Whereabouts were you, Jeff? On your... Well, everything, of course, is... But this is the river, look. You see how the river runs down. I'll tell you about... I'll just get a drink, and then I'll tell you. Thank you, Helen. That's lovely. It's very, very shallow, the river, at the moment. So you would need to be exceptionally good at shallow swimming. Dawn visit many of the lakes. So, of course, for the Lake District, it's really important to recognise that they are the lakes, not the lake. Of course, Windermere is the most famous of them, but, also Grasmere. Well, Grasmere, of course, is very, very near where, it's the other location of Wordsworth House. So, you've got Coniston Water, Derwent Water, Hawes Water. It's like the Great Lakes. So, for those of you that joined from North America, it's like the Great Lakes. It's a part of the country where you've got preponderance of They're back at MB Humphrey, and my two youngest daughters, my wife, are back at the house, and they appeared briefly on the live video I did on my All Points North. If you're not in All Points North, do come and join me on my Facebook group, where you'll find out what I'm up to and do little live bits from there. So this morning I did that from the top of Rescott Scar, which was rather nice, about sort of, not hugely high, about 700 feet up, but with a lovely view across what they call the outlying fells. So a place that Wainwright. So for those who are interested, by the way, in this part of the world, you really want to. Yeah, I mean, the dog's got blue hair at the minute. It's that kind of holiday hair, Linda. You know, during the school holidays, you can hair whatever colour you like. But yes, my lovely young ladies, well, absolutely. My girls are maturing fast, even my youngest ones. And but you know, it's lovely, isn't it? Every age your children get to. Hi, Heather. You know, brings a new, interesting sort of dynamic, doesn't it, to parenting? And you know, I know actually a lot of I bet Alex is one of these. A lot of the guides are, you know, kind of young free gadabouts, get to go everywhere and do other stuff. But I think it's nice that some of us are also parents and so forth. And even if we can't get perhaps to as many locations, it gives us something to talk about, doesn't it, on these tours. So my niece, a hair chameleon, never know what I was going to say. Linda, yeah, I mean, I know, but that was my daughter. If she had the chance, would have a different hair colour every kind of day of the week. But so how old are my teens? Are 14 and 17. My two youngest ones, we've got older ones, but they no longer live with me. So the River Rother is now on our right hand side. So it's very, very shallow, much shallower than I can remember it being when we were here kind of last time. So I'm guessing this really is to do with the kind of drought conditions. Oh, lovely, Diane. 15, 16 next week. Are they twins then, Diane? Have you got twins? So the Rothay comes from the Old Norse, and it means the red one. And it's come to mean Trout River. It rises kind of close to Rough Crag, above Dunmail, about 470 metres above sea level. And its catchment area covers Grasmere, Common, Easdale, Fairfield, all these kind of places, all these kind of fells to the east. So Great Rig, Rydal Fell, Scandale Fell, Heron Pike, those that know this area will know, I'm sure, at least heard of some of these places. I had to write this down. I've got a note in my pocket because my memory isn't so good that I haven't got a... But if you're interested, do check out Alfred Wainwright, because Alfred Wainwright is the man who in fact catalogued Lakeland, the fells. What he created was... People seen how familiar you are with Wainwright. Give me a thumbs up if you know about Wainwright, if you've sort of seen his stuff, because he is a tremendously influential figure, for our understanding, because not only did he sort of walk the fells, he spent his life, he was, I always get this wrong, was it Kendal? I think he was the town clerk or the town financier or whatever. Anyway, he worked in local government so that he could spend as much time as possible walking the fells. He was somebody that was really quite, not antisocial, but he kept his own company. And so he would walk the fells, but he beautifully drew them. A wonderful kind of light touch of an artist, pen and ink drawing. So he basically described the conditions, the routes, the paths, the variety of ways that you can get to certain sites. So just turn us around here so you can get a sight here of the backdrop now. A beautiful sky. There you go, Dan. So use his stuff of Loughrigg, your mum's gravestone. They are, Peter, you're absolutely right. I think they are the artistry, but really driven by both his passion, but also his knowledge. You know, that he, in effect, teaches us how to see, how to cross. And now it's an awful lot easier to get to places than it was in Wainwright's time for a lot of reasons, a lot more kind of paths and so forth. So in many respects, you know, he was like the kind of the forerunner of the fells as tourism. Up until that point, really, you know, it would have been a dangerous place to be if you didn't know your way around. But what he does, he effectively, I think there's about 16 books. I could be wrong, but somewhere in that kind of region. You know, that's kind of what you're talking about. You're a tremendous amount of books. That he kind of... The fells are fairly slim volumes to sort of put in your pocket and take out with you for the day. But basically, he covers a huge amount. So, as I said, River Rothay comes down the valley of Greenburn Bottom to Helmside, and then just north of Grasmere, it joins up with Easdale Gill and Sour Milk Gill. And then this comes together to create... And by the way, that just passes where Wordsworth is buried. And the Rothay then flows down here to the Lake of Grasmere, replenishes Grasmere, then works its way down to the Southern Lake before it comes down to Rydal Water, its eastern extremity, and it drains from Rydal right the way down here to Ambleside. So then it's going to flow into the lake. So look at that for a setting. Here's the dine. So it's rechecking the routes, redrawing, restoring. That's fantastic. So again, just the quality of the landscape here is quite phenomenal. I'm going to just take my time because we're still probably 5 minutes or so away from the lakeside. I'm going to have to look at the Roman fort as well. But I just thought I'd bring you just down back because the reflection, the quality of the light right now is, I think, I'm going to use the word sumptuous, if that's okay. Never been on this path? Okay, Dan. So we're just going to sort of slightly stray. I'm going to go through this little access point now, back through onto kind of the main path. 55 years, okay. But I just want to kind of break us down there. So you won't see me, but I'm starting to see now the masts of the boats at the water's edge. So we're coming really close now. So those that have been to Windermere will be getting excited. Those that haven't been, boy, have we got a location for you. So I'm going to let you a little hint of ankle there. Your first little glimpse, like a flash of an ankle. Just between there, you see that? You see that little stripe of white? That's Windermere. We're getting close. So let me find my way back onto the path because I think I've... Is this the way back? Last seen. Guide, last seen. Trying to find the way to Lake Windermere. Yeah, I've just sort of brought us down this way because it's kind of nice to follow it, but this is the road here. So, sort of teasing you, sort of telling the truth. As ever, the truth is to be found somewhere in between the two, but I think this is going to take us back onto the main pathway just down here. Hello, late joiners, Kate, Bronwyn Rain. You've missed a good deal of the tour, but actually there's still some real good stuff to come. So you haven't missed out enormously. Well, you haven't missed out enormously, but you haven't missed out critically. So work our way back. So as you can see now, we've got the shores of Windermere beginning to open up in front of us. And I hope by coming this way I haven't missed the fort, but I think we will be okay. Yeah. Well, if we're on private property, well, it will be an event, wouldn't it, going off? You know, live on Hago, live evictions, about served by a court order. What I'm hoping is there isn't a waterway, because I know, well, I might not have my own country, but it's not my own county. So I'm going to use that as a, thank you, Peter, use that as my defence. If I have to issue a mea culpa afterwards about why it is. So look at these, you can see this is a great deal drier. These stepping stones, of course, should be across water, which I was expecting. And they ain't there. So that, again, just gives you a clue about the impact this weather is having right now on... yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the path is just over the... We've just scooped out the mist. So I'll just bring us down into this corner. And then we're going to have a little look at the remains of the Roman fortress before we go down to the shoreline. So the Romans first chose this spot. And what we know is the earliest, smallest version of a fort was probably founded here in the time of Agricola, between about 80 and 85 AD, on this piece of flat ground. And it was occupied here by the Romans until at least 365 AD. Now, early investigation suggested it was abandoned early on, but more recent archaeology suggests it remained a fort and a main residence and Roman trading point, thank you, Fatima, right the way through the period of Roman occupation. And certainly under Hadrian, it held an important part because, of course, with the lake, which is now firmly in view, and we're working down towards the lake shore now, they had the opportunity, of course, of moving people and goods and so forth around by water. And so lots of ceramics have been found on this site that can tell us that this was very, very heavily occupied, certainly in the 2nd century. And the excavations say, even though it was destroyed once or twice in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, they rebuilt it. So I'm just going to posted an image so you can have a look at what we think. We see this is done by the National Trust, so we have every reason to suggest that that is a pretty decent rendering. And the good thing about the Romans is they built to plan. So consequently, once you kind of know what one Roman building looks like and resembles, you can pretty much say, okay, by the site, by the size, by the location of what we can see, we can determine what would have been there. So this was a large fort, but also there had been a large settlement around it. So wherever you've got Romans, you can have people that are going to come and sell them things. Whether those things are food, textiles, whisper ladies, entertainment. Camp followers, you're always going to get people growing up because the soldiers have got money. They come in the well-paid. We know this is the centurion's house on this side. So you can't see so much. It's sort of good to see it from the ground floor, but it gives us an idea of the room layouts. It is, so the centurion would of course have been a very wealthy guy. So natives, yeah, absolutely. So there would have been natives here. We think going back to about 4000 BC is the oldest settlements, Neolithic excavations on the shorelines. It's been here at least for 4,000 years. But really it is in the Roman fortress, the settlement of the Romans. So again, look at that sky. The cows, I'll just give you a little zoom there. Isn't that quite something? Yes, absolutely. Planting crops, not great because the stone is too close to the surface. Insofar as kind of the landscape isn't really ideal. So this is much more landscape that is suited to livestock farming than it is to arable farming. It's very, very difficult. Maybe we could tip a cow. We could do that, but I'm not sure that's an entirely responsible thing to do. So just the interpretation board here, as I was saying there. So we've got the commanding officer's house on the left-hand side, the headquarters, and the granary building. And what we know is that there is a huge section of this is not excavated as yet. It's awaiting further development. So you may see, if I sort of point it there, can you kind of see the earthworks? You know what I mean by earthworks? So the landscape is telling us where buildings and walls and structures lay, but they're not actually in place. So as I say, it's a very, very important Roman site. We think it measured about 91 by 128 metres, and it covers 1.3 hectares. We think, for the most part, it's Emperor Hadrian, the early part of the 2nd century. Keeps flooding. It wouldn't do much at this time, unfortunately, with the lack of water. Another cheeky teaser of Windermere, which we are very, very near to. We're about to go through Borens Park. And this was located on the Roman road between Brougham and Ravenglass. So, again, it's a trading place. It's a fort. It's a really important centre. So everything we've kind of talked about is the importance of this. And so much of it, of course, is about its location, its topography, its geology, the source of clean water. You know, build a camp, you want clean water. Well, water don't get much cleaner than Lake Windermere. So many of you, of course, may well have Roman DNA. And the interesting thing about Romans, of course, is because they conquered so much of Europe, they would then assimilate the best warriors that they'd fought and battled and beaten, vanquished an army. But those warriors would then be brought into the Roman army. But what they would then do is move them to a different territory, because what the Romans didn't want then is the risk of them turning. This is what, anyone know what this is called? Yeah, MB, it's a kissing gate. And my grandma said when she was a maid in the old, always beware the kissing gates. The boys would hold them shut and demand the price of a kiss in order to get through to the other side. So pucker up, ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming through. Sorry, that wasn't me squeezing because my belly, that's my backpack, got stuck there. Isn't it good? Yeah, real sound effects. Live squeaky gate from the Lake District. Yeah, we are going to see the lake. We are going to see a lot of the lake. So that is where we are going. Don't forgotten. Don't worry. We are. I'll really learn back through. Or it could have been through me. Could have been somebody else. But again, just coming back. We're now again seeing. I think now into the late 19th century, early 20th century, lakeside buildings. That of course, the closer you get to the lake, the more money you would need. The deeper your pockets would have to be to pay for it because you're talking about real kind of prime location as we're walking our way now down towards the shoreline of the world famous Lake Windermere. And I think we've chosen, we're not quite at Tish's Blue Hour. I don't know if Tish is on. I think she was earlier. We're not quite at your Blue Hour, Tish. But I think that we are at a very nice time as the sun is starting to set. We're going to have a lot of colour in the sky. But more importantly, we're going to have a lot fewer people than we would have had were we here earlier in the day. So consequently, I really hope that we can create for you some really memorable postcard opportunities. I was going to take us down there, but thank you, Trees. That's very kind of you. But let's bring us now to have our first look at the shoreline. We'll let you feel the water lapping at your ankles before I take us round to the boats and the pier head. But I've deprived you for long enough. So now it's time to take in the stunning natural beauty, be in awe, ladies and gentlemen, of Lake Windermere. Mark was around here, knows all about the site, so look at that. Heather, you've only just come on recently. Heather, you have to close your eyes, Heather, for about 20 minutes to earn the right to look at this. I'm only joking. Anybody's welcome, whatever time you joined us, but we've been on over an hour, so sorry, just couldn't resist that. But look at that. You can understand, can't you, why people just get misty-eyed, whether those people are famous poets. The name of this lake is Lake Windermere. We'll talk about the lake just in a minute, but I just want to just allow people just to take it in. So this is the spot, really, that obviously the Romans chose. This is why they chose it. They accessed fresh water, a place you could moor your boats up. Kind of obvious, really, isn't it, why they would choose to build here? Not least, of course, because it is so darn cute. So let's just have a walk round to sort of the main section. So as I was saying earlier, when we were in the town, so we've walked about a mile on our way down. The youth hostel's quite near here, isn't it, Mark, as I recall? Lovely buildings just up on the, just raised up, these lakeside views. Just elegance in terms of the properties. You know, everything beautifully proportioned. It's a wonderful part of the country to be in. So don't worry, we're going to see plenty more of the lake. I'm just bringing us round to the most famous waterside with the boats. So say on a daily basis, the population of this area swells dramatically because we have the paddle steamers that come in and bring people from Bowness down here. Many of them get off. Some will just go all the way round. It's got looping tours, but many will get off. But as I say, what they tend to do is they'll tend to hang out down this end, which you can understand. It can't even really look at it. It's a beautiful place to be. Really, it's Storm Desmond 2015 flooded out. Wow, you can see the natural beauty. Look at the colour in the sky over here now. It's beginning to form. Quite majestic. It really is. So, of course, this is where the Romans came in from that point onwards, really. We've had people down here. So Windermere Lake is, the shoreline is 10 miles. It's 1 mile wide and 220 feet deep. It's the largest source, I think, of fresh water in the country. Thank you, Linda. So it's the largest lake in both the Lake District but also England. And it's fed by numerous rivers. Isn't it, Peter? Isn't it beautiful? Reopen the hostel of the lake. I'm guessing I'm being flippant there. I know what you're talking about. So there's numerous rivers feeding to it. We've seen the River Rother that runs down, but actually quite a number of the rivers flowing to the Rother first. And strictly speaking, Windermere Lake is just called Winder. Mere means lake. So that you're sort of saying Winder, lake, if you say Windermere. So Mere means lake. Windermere Village, which is now known as kind of Windermere, kind of takes the name from that. So it's slightly confusing. There didn't used to be, there was a place called Bowness, which is still there. But the place that's now called Windermere didn't used to be called Windermere, but obviously to cash in on the tourism, it's now called kind of Windermere, so rather confusing. But this is the South Lakes, South Lakelands. As I was saying earlier, there's been settlement here in the Neolithic times, so going all the way back to about 4,000 years, so back into the Iron Age. And there's this kind of lots of axes have been found here. So in the kind of digging up, we've had lots of axe heads and so forth. And so like about a quarter, I think, of all the discovery of Neolithic axe heads have been discovered around here. So it does suggest this was a major settlement for people in this period of time. The Romans, they built their fort of Galava, as I was saying, on the shores of the lake. A few duckies there. Quite something, isn't it? And so, of course, what the water allowed was the movement of heavy materials. Things that weigh a great deal are relatively easy to move on the waterway. The Vikings were here. They gave us a lot of the namings. Castle Rig, absolutely. So Castle Rig, for those that don't know, not too far away from here, is a stone circle. So not as grand as Stonehenge. Quite like the Royal White Stones, which is, I think, where Ian Braisby was at, certainly very soon, if not today. So stone circles that, of course, are said to have purpose in Druid worship, so pre-Christian forms of worship, often orientated around points of where the sun will go up and down at times of solstice. So, aren't they beautiful? Lovely light in the clouds, absolutely. I'm just trying to give you a variety of postcard opportunities now. I'm just kind of, not showing off, that's the wrong word. I'm showing it off to you. Oh, hello, Alex. Late to join us, but welcome nonetheless. We're here on the shore of Lake Windermere. Beautiful English Lake District. Fantastic, Diane. Getting some great posters. And this lovely pinkish glow of the skies. No power boats. Well, these are, as you see, they're all masted vessels. So I think for the most part, it's sailboats. But of course, the steamers, the famous steamers that take people up and down, are of course powered. So, see, I'm just going to miss out the lake for a minute, just so we can come round to the other side. I'll give us one last glimpse, because then I want to take us to the water side so we can see all the boats and the bit where people go for an ice cream when they get off the steamers, because it is lovely down there. But as you can see, thank you, Jen. I'm going to walk around sort of behind this building now and bring us back around to where we can see over that other side. So you're not losing your view. Well, you're going to lose your view of the lake. Is the water level as high as this? I don't know to what degree this is impacted. It's not. It's obviously we've had a lot of dry weather. To what degree? It's certainly impacting on all the streams around here. So I would imagine that the amount of water that is flooding into Windermere right now, in terms of volume, will be a good deal less than it might be at other times, certainly compared to flood periods. But whether that predominantly impacts on it on a grand scale, I generally don't know. So I'm not going to just guess. So the Vikings, they were here. They introduced the Herdwick sheep. So for those who've been part of this, being in this part of the world, will know about the very, very hardy sheep. I was looking at Humphrey, trying to stop my dog Humphrey from chasing the sheep, and more importantly, eating the sheep poo. At times, you think about how lovely dogs are, but sometimes they're foul. And I had the mother of all jobs keeping him from eating the poo this morning. Thank you, Linda. Well, we're nearly done. I'm just taking us down to finish up by the shoreline and by the famous kind of rowboats and everything down there. It's just a very, very kind of nice space, but I just have to walk us around the back because we can't actually get to the pub here. And so, thank you, Linda, for joining us. Delightful company, as ever. So for those that have been, this is the famous Water Edge Inn. Probably one of the best located beer gardens, thank you, Hilary, in the country, where you can sit, have a drink, beer, a glass of wine, a gin. Do tell us, if you were sitting down here, could be a soft drink, could be cocoa. What would you like to be drinking right now, sitting and watching the sun set over Lake Windermere? Do let us know what your tipple of choice would be as you watch the gentle lapping of the waters. A glass of rosé for Catherine. Thank you. A gin and tonic for Elise. Some Pimm's, lemonade, a Monaco. Sandra, you're very welcome. A gin and tonic. I don't know that, Codigo. What's that? Helen, you're very, very welcome. It's always a delight and a pleasure to, thank you, Diane. A sake, it's very exotic. A sweet cider. Nice. I've got some local ale to go back to, so I'll be driving back. I'm not far, a 20-minute drive away from where we're staying, and I've got some local Hawkshead beer to enjoy when I get back. So that's just turning it to the walk. There's a bunch of people coming past, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable being filmed. So I'm just parked in this car park here. So, Cynthia, there are others on here, I'm sure, that are better qualified. In my view, I would say that from here back down to Westmoreland, I would say it's probably 40 miles or so. But don't quote me on that. Heather, it's always a delight for other guides to be on. It's lovely that we all support one another in this way and get involved in each other's tours. I think that's a very, very good, positive, supportive thing. And hopefully that will continue and that we all can support one another, be positive, offer help, suggestions. And if there's anything that I can do as a more experienced guide, should we put it that way, I'm going to say an older guide, to help, do let me know. But look at this lovely pinkish sky now. Yes, you're absolutely right, Diane. Westmoreland and doesn't exist. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the imagination. So, but look at that pinkish light. Isn't that something? I'm just going to walk us out a little bit on here, and then we'll go down and look at the rowboats. But isn't that light? You can see why, can't you? You can see why Lake Windermere has caught the imagination, why it's inspired people for 2,000 years to spend time here. And I'm delighted to say that I kind of guessed right in terms of timing, day of the week, time of the day, that we finally got down here, and what during a busy August afternoon will be swamped with people. Instead, it's tranquil, thanks Elise, and beautiful and inspiring. And we can see, I think, why Wordsworth and so many others would be inspired by this landscape, would want to be here, want to spend time here. There's so much of the world to discover, but it's so wonderful that there are parts of your own country that make your heart sing, that just make you proud of your home nation. And particularly for me, with these sites that I get to share with you across northern England, that I feel I'm hopelessly romantic about the north of England. I love so much of Britain, so much of the southeast, the southwest are wonderful, but for me, there's nowhere quite like northern Britain. It's raw, rugged, untamed beauty, water, mountains, paths, rivers, coastlines, just inspire me. And I want to show you more and more. And that's where the fly in the ointment comes. And that's why I say thank you to everybody on this tour that is a sponsor, that is now helping to make this more feasible, more viable, to everybody who has left a financial contribution, for those able to do so. Thank you so much. For those that weren't, hey, that's life. There's a cost of living crisis going on. We get it. We understand it. Never feel pressured. Always feel you can come on these tours. But of course, as and when a little bit extra comes in, if you can put a little bit of it my way, when saying thank you, that's awesome. I'd appreciate it. But in the meantime, keep coming, keep being part of this, keep enjoying it, keep contributing to the community, keep posting onto my site, bring up your postcards. There's not enough postcard activity on my Facebook group. So please don't automatically just think, hey, go Voyagers, put on my group. It's nice, because what I'm trying to do, obviously, is start to do, leverage partnerships, be talking to local councils, local tourist boards, and say, look what I can do to help promote your locations. So the more leverage I've got in terms of materials, photographs, reviews, they all help, if you like, with that conversation of saying that we've got reach. That's what it's all about these days. Thanks, Alex. It's about demonstrating that without necessarily being paid, if they will pay my petrol, that takes the pressure off the platform. It allows me to commit to going further, doing more. So everybody in every way, it's never feel that it's about how any one individual contributes. It's how about we all do our bit through reviews, recommendations, telling our friends, our neighbours, our children, our grandchildren, what we can all do, and try, if we can, to resist the urge to get involved in the scraps and the arguments and the tension. Do go, Alison. We're kind of running over, and I'm just kind of wrapping up. It's all too easy to fire off a reply, stoke up an argument, and before we know it, folks are getting upset, and then probably 2 hours later you think, If I'd thought about it, I wouldn't probably have posted that. So do just be kind, first and foremost. This is a wonderful thing. Be able to stand here and know that there's people, all quarters of the planet, that are sharing this with me is quite remarkable. Yeah, have a lovely day at work, Alison. Hopefully this has inspired you to get started. I'm just going to do a final couple of postcard shots for you down this side. Isn't the light beautiful? Absolutely something. Well, you are here, aren't you? I mean, that's the thing is you're here via the internet, and increasingly, particularly with the challenges of global warming and so forth. Virtual travel is here to stay. It probably started off as a marketing tool, a way of saying, come and see this and then come and visit in person. Of course, that was where they initially started. But now I think it's evolving, isn't it? And it's becoming a permanent part of the ecology of tourism for those that are either not in a position to travel, whether that be for reasons of wealth, mobility, all the factors. But also, there's so much of the world, isn't there, that we'd like to see. And in reality, I'm now in my 50s. I know that there's countries that I'm never going to go to, not because I wouldn't want to, but because I've never prioritised them high enough. There'd always be somewhere I wanted to go more. So to me, Hago is a perfect opportunity to look at what life is like in country X or city Y, in the knowledge that almost certainly, unless things change markedly, unless I win the lottery, I'm never going to get to go there, but I still get to enjoy it, feel part of it. So that's why I think all guides should be voyagers as well. I think if you're not a voyager as well, it's difficult to really kind of get the vibe of what matters to people. So that's why I try and go, I can't do as many as I'd like, but I try and get as many tours as I can. So how's that for a closing postcard shot? Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Angela. If that's not a postcard, I don't know what it is. Aren't they beautiful? There's something, of course, as ever, about repetition in imagery that just works for us. And, of course, nice diagonal lines running through as well. So from a photographic point of view, thank you, Alice. Do you have a lovely evening? One soiree for you. Absolutely, Sharon. We're all in that kind of same position. We've experienced so much more in life than ever we thought we could. We're not just watching TV. We can say, hey, could you just turn round? Would you mind? Yeah, for those that sketch, classic image of the lakes. So this is when you get your when you get the steamer. This is a steamer over here. So that the longboat in the background, that's what you can, go round on and go and see all the various sort of inlets and bits and pieces of the lake. So we all get so much from this. And I think it's because everyone cares so much that it's so easy for those kind of tensions just to kind of pop up, isn't it? And get embroiled in some of these, these arguments, these kind of discussions, these debates, as you might say. If people didn't care, they'd shrug their shoulders. It's the exact opposite. I think at times people care perhaps a little bit too much, and they worry that things, when something this special has been created, that it might just be slipping away. But what I'd say is I don't think it is. It has to evolve, it has to change. But I think as long as there are people here that care about the delivery, people that care about the content, and people that care about how it's supported and care about the guides, I think that we will find a way to make this truly sustainable, because it's too special to lose. Susan, you joined us right at the end. I think that this is one of my favourite postcards on any tour that I can share with you. So if you're only going to join for one bit of one tour of all the of all the locations that I bring you to, this will be it. Looking at the rowboats on the waterside at Ambleside, on the shores of the mighty Lake Windermere. It's not quite dark. We're quite a lot further north than you are in Luton, Jeff. So you can see we've still got a good deal of colour in the sky. Let me just bring you around. Look how dramatic this sky is now. Fantastic tomorrow. I'm glad. Lovely way to end your working day and transition into your evening. What a spot, ladies and gentlemen. What a spot. No, we like the chatter. I know. So I know that there are people that don't like chat, and I think that they probably evolved away from me. And I don't say that with any kind of like, oh, we'll go somewhere else. Merely that for me, the chat, the conversation is an intrinsic element for me of touring. For other guides, it'll be different. And I'm not saying for a second what other people should do. They must evolve to their own style. That's the whole thing. You can't copy somebody else. You can be influenced by people, but you've got to find your own way of doing it. For me, having a conversation with you guys as I go along is what I do. Of course, I will start here with, what we'll talk about, and I might weave around, come back to the point, and so forth. But your contribution is what keeps it fascinating for me. So as long as people don't go off on too many weird tangents, and at times when I can see the conversation is going off on a weird tangent, I'll just not ignore it, but I'll let you have a little conversation. I'll come back and just try and bring you back in the room, as you might say. But I don't worry about, but as I say, I know it's one of those contentious points. It's a hot planet, is chat. But not for me. I like it. I think it's what makes it unique. Because otherwise, if you really, really want to, I know, Sharon, don't worry about it. Don't ever shut yourself up. But do, yeah. No, I'm joking. But it's like there's so much fantastic stuff on YouTube. Shot in 4K, wonderfully edited, great sound. If that's what people want, they're going to get way better experience than me walking along holding a gimbal like this or any other guide. But it's more than that because it's live, because of that community. But to me, it's the chat that brings the community alive. So yes, I think it is a positive thing, is chatter. I know it's not very, okay, that's a nice shot, isn't it? It is. The chat can be turned off, absolutely, Dawn. I'm just loving this light. I'm going to have to wrap it up because I've got to get home. Spend time with my family. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Dad. It's a shame that it's shut, but if it wasn't, you wouldn't be getting these postcards because there would be, the light wouldn't be what I want it to be, which is this. This is how I wanted mentally. So what I wanted the postcards to look like, because I do plan around time. Patrick was very influential on helping me think about light. But also, this would be teeming with women. It'd be busy. And, of course, the people would be curious. What are you filming? What are you doing? We wouldn't get, I don't think, this unique vibe. We wouldn't get this kind of sense of peace. So let's just... Absolutely, Elise, a fantastic community. And increasingly one where people get a chance to meet up in person now, which is quite awesome. Not for everybody, of course, but for those that want to. Diane's got to go and live here. Well, I do love postcards, and of course, I'm on my way to the big target. A bit of a way off yet, but really excited that at some point, hopefully the next couple of months, the 1 million postcard mark will be reached. I know some have got 2 million already, but I think 1 million is quite amazing. Who doesn't need this? So every postcard you snap, you're taking me closer to my big number. Well, thank you, Dolores. You got the big number. So one last look at this beautiful sky. Thank you, Dawn. The waterside. The launcher. So I want you to take a mental sip of that drink you ordered. Raise it to your fellow Hago Voyagers and to the guides that are on here. Drink to our shared health, happiness and well-being. I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. So from the shores of Lake Windermere, in England's beautiful Lake District, in Ambleside, look at this lovely pink light now, I'm going to say good night, good evening, wish you well, and how much I've enjoyed being back in Ambleside and your company. So thank you. Thank you everybody who has left something behind. Thank you for all my sponsors. And I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Thank you and good night.